Welcome everybody. Please take a seat. Those people who want a sandwich and are hungry, sandwiches are around the corner, so you can go and collect one. If you're not in a hurry, they will not disappear until half an hour before the end of the session, so that should be okay. Yes. Here is the pointer for all of you. So if you hold it like this upside, let me just... So to respect the time, I suggest we start now, and I would like to give the floor to our host MEP opening the session.
Thank you, Mark. Well, first of all, bon appetit, and allow me to introduce myself. I'm Igor Šoltes. I'm MEP and a member of a Green Group here in European Parliament. So I'm host this lunch debate, and I really have pleasure to welcome you and to introduce you to this year's session. It's early tradition that the joint association users and professionals and manufacturers, in strong cooperation with the World Health Organization and World Hearing Day, organize a lunch debate inside the European Parliament in the first week of March since 2014. When Mark approached to me last year and invited me to host this year in this lunch debate, I agreed right away because of importance of really these topics, and since prevention, awareness and intervention for hearing loss, which is invisible disability with significant impact on all aspects of quality of life, is so essential and dear to me. And also in Slovenia, we strongly cooperate with the Slovenian association, and I'm also really happy that we have a speaker from my home country. So the theme of this lunch debate is protect and check your hearing, and three themes of audiology. Students have allowed everybody inside the Parliament to have their hearing checked since this morning, and we'll give you the results of this test at the end of this debate. And I also participated in this test and this checking process, so I'm a little concerned about my hearing after this, but I will try to improve a little. So allow me also to say something about our speakers. So Shelly Chada from the World Health Organization will kick off this lunch debate with the theme of World Hearing Day 2019, Check Your Hearing, Creating Awareness of Hearing Loss, and she will introduce the brand new WHO self-test to check your hearing on your smartphone. And Kim Ruberg from HEARIT will present a new, very elaborate scientific report on the social and economic costs of hearing impairment. One of the shocking conclusions of this report is that untreated disability hearing loss costs 185 billion euros in the year, every year, which is 25 billion euros more than the whole European Union budget for 2018 and also for 2019, probably. Although awareness and intervention are very important, the first focus should be prevention. And Mark from the European Association of Hearing Care Professionals will tell us more on how we can make sure that hearing protection is effective and how we can ensure that people use it whenever it's required. Daria Paik from the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People will present the social aspects of early identification of hearing loss. It means screening at a very young age, but since hearing loss can occur at any age, also without screening, it's about detection, the problem at the earliest possible time, and the sooner you can detect it, hearing loss, the better outcome for the person with the loss, and the sooner quality of life can improve. And Mladen Veršić, the president of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Association of Slovenia, will conclude the presentation of his testimony on how they were very successful in organizing a hearing awareness campaign last year. So then we will start the debate, and we like to encourage you to participate actively and also to express your opinion, your statements, your views about this very important topic. So allow me also to give the floor to the first speaker, Shelley, and thanks again for coming, and I really wish you really fruitful debate today. Thank you.
Thank you, MEP Gorsaltis. Thank you, Mark, and thank you to all of you for organizing and hosting this debate, as well as for being here to discuss today, on the occasion of the World Hearing Day in 2019, the importance both of prevention and early identification. To start with, I'd like to introduce you to two people who are very special to me. This young boy that you see on the screen is Vinod. I met Vinod when he was a 10-year-old boy, and he was studying in a public school in Delhi, where me and my colleagues, we happened to organize a camp, a year in hearing survey, a checkup. So we were in the school, and his teacher brought him to us separately, while all the other students were coming to us as well. But she brought him specifically and said, please look at his ears very carefully. I think there's something wrong with them. So we examined, and as soon as we started examining him, it was clear that Vinod had a severe or more, even greater hearing loss. So we tried to get some history from the teacher, but she wasn't too clear. So luckily, it was the parents lived close by, so his mother, we could call his mother, and she came in a little short time, and she gave us the history that actually 10 months back, 10 months before that, Vinod had had an episode of acute meningitis, so he had suffered with meningitis. He recovered physically, completely from the meningitis, but unknown to everybody, he had developed a profound hearing loss in both his ears as a consequence of that. His parents felt that perhaps the fever had somehow affected his brain and he was not quite all there anymore. And he continued to go to school, sitting in class, and for 10 months, he spent his time in silence, not able to communicate, not able to fully understand what was happening to him. And his teachers wondering why this young, active boy was now suddenly turning into a recluse and was refusing to interact in class or to play with his classmates. Through the vigilance of this teacher, and due to the screening camp that we were hosting, this child could be identified and subsequently gain rehabilitation so that his education and his life could be back on track. The second person that I'd like to introduce you to is Suniti. Suniti is actually the daughter of a friend, and when she was about 18 or 19 perhaps, her mother got really frustrated with her because she was just acting up in her mother's thinking, because the bell would be ringing and sometimes the phone would ring and she wouldn't even bother to pick it up or go and open the door. So her mother said, I think I need to take you to Shelley and get your ears checked. And she did bring her to me. And what we realized as soon as we got the result of the audiogram was that Suniti had specifically hearing loss, which was a noise-induced hearing loss. And it came out that for the last few years, her favorite pastime was to put on her headphones, shut herself in her room, and listen to music at a loud volume. So these two, and many others like them, have helped to define, for me, what is the need for hearing care across the board. Besides them, there are many others who are either at risk of hearing loss or have hearing loss. And we know that globally, hearing loss is on the rise. WHO estimates that unless we take action now, preventive as well as action to intervene for hearing loss, more than 900 million people by the year 2050 could be experiencing disabling hearing loss. All of you who are here are aware of the fact that unaddressed hearing loss has an impact. It is an impact at an institutional level, at a national or a societal level. Globally, we know that unaddressed hearing loss carries a cost of as high as $750 billion annually. This is the cost of not caring for hearing loss. This is the cost of not providing devices. It's the cost which the healthcare system, the education system, as well as the society has to bear for not addressing hearing loss. Governments would fail in their attempt to achieve the sustainable goal for education for all if hearing loss was not addressed, if people with hearing loss do not have access to services, do not have access to communication and education. Similarly, the productivity, the countries are missing out on a whole section of productive workforce when they cannot communicate and engage in livelihood as they should. Unaddressed hearing loss also poses a huge demand for resources, both for human resources as well as for finances and other resources. So unaddressed hearing loss has a huge impact at a societal level. And of course, it has an impact at the individual level. At an individual level and at the level of the families, we know that unaddressed hearing loss hampers communication. It is a barrier to gaining education. It also prevents people from achieving their potential in terms of livelihood. And we know that people with hearing loss are much less likely to be employed. And when employed, often get lower wages or have early retirement as compared to their hearing peers. At the same time, we know that unaddressed hearing loss also carries social and emotional consequences, consequences of exclusion and of not being able to be a part of the society. So unaddressed hearing loss impacts both at the national or the societal level as well as at the individual or family level. What's important from a public health perspective is that hearing loss can be addressed. A lot of hearing loss can actually be prevented? As per WHO estimates, as much as 60% of hearing loss occurring in children can actually be prevented through public health strategies. Now, while there are many causes which can be prevented, ear infections, use of certain medicines which affect the ear, but the one factor which I'm going to highlight today and which WHO has focused its attention on is the factor of noise. WHO estimates that over 1 billion young people globally are at risk of hearing loss simply because of the way they're listening to music both over their headphones like Suniti, as well as in entertainment venues, in concerts, in discos, at sporting events, even in fitness classes. So this is a huge risk. What is important is that this hearing loss is completely preventable, while at the same time being irreversible once it has occurred. So highlighting this factor and working on how to address it, WHO has collaborated with the International Telecommunications Union to develop a global standard for safe listening audio devices for smartphones as well as for MP3 players. So what can be those features which must be included in smartphones and in MP3 players and other devices which you can use for listening to music in order that they do not put our hearing at risk? So WHO, along with ITU, has come up with a series of recommendations, and if I try to just simplify those, this consists essentially of 3 recommendations. On one hand, every device should be able to track how you're listening, how much sound you're consuming, how much volume you're receiving, how much time did you spend listening, and so what kind of exposure did you have? At the same time, so think of it somewhat like having a speedometer. At the moment, we are telling young people to turn the volume down. It's like asking them to drive a car and ask them to stay within a speed limit, but without putting a speedometer in it. So what we are aiming to do is to recommend that every device comes with a speedometer, which doesn't just track the volume, but tracks both the volume and the time and tells you whether you are within your sound exposure limit or you're going over it. It also should offer the young people, or anybody who uses it, certain safety features, such as volume limiting options, so that when you're exceeding your total sound limit, it can automatically bring the volume down, or parental control features so that parents can rest a bit easy, at least when their children, before the children know how to unlock their passwords, by setting a volume capping on this. At the same time, it also mandates that devices should be able to display and inform users of this. So at the touch of a fingertip, they should be able to access this information, how they're listening, how much sound did they consume today or over the last 1 week. So just as today many of us are tracking our steps, how many steps did I walk today? How much did I sleep last night? So similarly, you should be able to access that information. How did you listen? And then the device should be able to give you certain suggestions, certain personalized instructions and cues for action based on your own listening profile. So that is the global standard which WHO and ITU have proposed as it means to prevent hearing loss, the one being caused due to listening to loud sounds. In order to support countries as well as manufacturers in implementing this tool, this standard, WHO has also developed a practical guide, a toolkit, which is a practical guide and a follow-up on how to implement this standard. Besides prevention, hearing loss, once it has occurred, it can be addressed. We know that hearing loss can be addressed through rehabilitation, through education, through the use of hearing devices, as well as empowerment. And I think many of you here today are excellent examples of such services being made available. What is important is that early identification, which is followed by prompt and appropriate interventions, should be made available to all people who need it, when they need it, and where they need it, irrespective of which part of the world they're living in and what strata of society they belong to. Such services should be available to all. In an effort and to do so, we have different strategies for early identification. Public health strategies such as universal newborn screening, such as school screening checkups, such as making hearing screening available for people who are at high risk, those working in noisy occupations, exposed to certain medicines, or regularly listening to loud music, as well as to people who are above the age of 50, so gradually start checking your for early identification, and to support countries and partners in undertaking such early identification. This year, on the occasion of World Hearing Day, WHO has launched this software application, which is based on validated digits and noise technology, and it offers a means for people to check their hearing as well as to track it over time. One disclaimer here is that this is not a substitute for audiometry. It's not a substitute or a replacement, and we cannot just take this and then not follow it up. But what is important is that it can be used by all people, preferably above the age of 16 years, as a way to both check their hearing as well as track it over time. It also provides certain information about hearing loss, and so we also see it as a tool for raising awareness. It can also be used by health workers who are offering screening services in the community, so that all older people, as well as all people who need services, do not necessarily need to find an audiology clinic or a trained audiologist to undertake their, you could say, pre-screening check. So we also suggest that this could be a first level of screening, so that those who fail this test should then be for sure referred to or taken to an audiology clinic for a proper evaluation. We know that hearing loss is not always apparent. Many of us, even here, perhaps we continue to ignore some of the common signs of hearing loss, simply tending to raise the volume. We don't consider it something big if we turn up the volume of the television or ask somebody, what did you say, when we are in a restaurant or a noisy situation, or getting a ringing sensation in the ear. But these could be signs of hearing loss, and it's important that we inform people of these and invite them, encourage them, motivate them to check their hearing. And through Hear WHO, all we are trying to do is make this really accessible for people, so that they don't need to find anything more than a quiet place and 5 minutes in a year to do their hearing check. Governments also need to take cognizance and act, because identifying hearing loss early is the first step towards improving access to education, towards developing a productive workforce, towards ensuring that all people, including older adults, can have a good quality of life, and towards saving resources which are indeed scarce. So again, we invite governments to undertake screenings for different ages, whether it's for neonates, school children, people of working age group, as well as for older adults. in order to ensure that people can remain productive and can have their hearing loss addressed at the earliest. So on the occasion of World Hearing Day 2019, I'd just like to summarize that WHO wants to again address the fact that unaddressed hearing loss poses a serious concern both for individuals and their families as well as for governments and policymakers. At the same time, WHO acknowledges that a lot of hearing loss can be prevented. Can be prevented, and governments must act to reduce this preventable hearing loss. Implementing the WHO ITU standard for safe listening devices is one such public health strategy which can help us to mitigate this growing risk of hearing loss due to loud sounds. At the same time, early identification of hearing loss is key for successful intervention in those who do develop hearing loss. And for this purpose, WHO promotes the use of Hear WHO and other such tools in order to identify adults with hearing loss at an early stage, as well as a means for screening in the community. So I thank you all for your attention, and I remind you again at the end of the two key offerings which WHO has on this day. Please do visit our webpage for more information, or feel free to write to me should you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, for your presentation. I think you expressed a few very, very important messages in your presentation, which could also help government and society to wake up, to start to thinking that we are talking a lot about the air pollution, water pollution, but we are not talking enough about the sound pollution and the noise pollution, which, you know, sometimes you cannot avoid all this noise pollution because everywhere you could find this, also in the supermarket, in the entertainments, in downtown, in the capitals, I mean, in the railway, in the highway. I mean, it's really sometimes crazy world. And I could say, yes, I completely agree that also music could affect your hearing. And I'm the, quintessential case for this, because I have a rock and roll band and I play bass guitar. And after so many years, more than 20 years in this rock and roll band, I'm not talking about the music, because music is wonderful, but I'm talking about the volume. And several times I'm asked my colleague, please, to down this little volume, otherwise, it's not sustainable to be in this place. So I think it's very important to invest as much as possible also in this prevention and also awareness. What will be impact of hearing loss? What will be the impact of society, of communication, of everything? And this is also a possibility of our governments and also of this European Parliament to take care about this. And we could start here to inform our colleagues, our staff, and also our services to take care about the volumes everywhere. So thank you again, Sheila. And now I would like to give the floor to Kim Ruberg for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Shelley, for putting body and mind on the figures that I'm going to tell you about, because unfortunately, I'm primarily going to tell you about figures and numbers, and I hope it won't be too, I hope it will work. No? Okay. In terms of numbers, well, we have put a Facebook teaser out asking people, how many do you think actually are disabling hard of hearing in Europe? And as you can see up here, it is a tremendous number of people that actually have a disabling hearing loss in Europe. And then when it comes to figures, we have then asked how many, or rather, how much does that cost for Europe? And we gave three different possibilities. And of course, you can guess it was the bigger one. as the chairman said just before, it's 185 billion a year, which is 25 billion more than the EU budget for 2018, and as I just learned from you now, from 2019 as well. So this is a tremendous high number. We made a similar report back in 2006, and we were actually pretty shocked when we saw this one here, that the figures were so much higher. If at that time we had 25 dB, because that was what the European Union, WHO, and so on said was a hearing loss that required help. Now it don't work again, but as you can see up here, these figures now have gone from 170 billion to 400 if we take 25 dB for the European Union, and even higher if we take it for Europe as such. Now, don't blame us, it's not our fault. The reason why it has increased so much is quite simply that the scientists of the world have looked at a hearing loss and found out that a hearing loss is a much, much, much bigger problem in the daily world than they thought before. In 2013, they simply revised not only hearing loss, but practically all other health problems, and put it into a system so they can compare. These are the figures that the European Parliament, the national governments, and everywhere else, they use to assess how burdensome is any one health problem for society. And as you can see on these numbers, especially on severe and profound hearing loss, they actually upped it 5 times and 7 times. And as you can imagine, when something suddenly gets 5 times worse or 7 times worse, then that, transfigured into economy and things like that, really makes a tremendous difference. Now, the report that we have made is not a sort of deep scientific unique work. What we have done is that we have taken all the deep scientific unique works and research in this field in the last 20-25 years, and had 2 professors from the Brunel University in London to go through all these. They are expert in comparing data. So they took all this data and compared it and compiled from that this new report that we have made. The report is split into 4 parts, where the first, I can't really read what's up there, is compiled of what actually are the prevalence of hearing loss, and what are then the effects of hearing loss. What does ownership mean? Who has it? How many uses a hearing aid or a cochlear implant or any other help for that? And then, of course, the last one is, what is the cost to society of not doing something to help the hard of hearing contra helping the hard of hearing? The main author of the report is Professor Bridget Shield, which many of you will probably know. She wrote our first report back in 2006, and she has been the author also of a number of other reports, and she has been helped by Professor Mark Atherton, also of Brunel University, and they are both experts in taking these study and make that into a meta report that goes around and takes all the figures. Now, what is so important this time is that, thank you again to a good cooperation from Shelley and her people, we have aligned ourselves very, very much with the WHO, which makes a big difference because then we actually go into gross national product per country instead of an average as we did, and we have based our figures very, very much on the global burden of disease group of scientists. Many of you will know that this is a group of 1,800 scientists from all over the world that advises the World Health Organization and generally does a lot of work on this. This is not just on hearing loss. This is on all health-related matters, and that's why these figures has been 5 times higher or 7 times higher, depending on where we are on the scale, because they always compare different kind of problems to each other. And one of the things that really shocked us this time was how much more negative effect you have with a hearing loss than we thought, or rather that scientists thought were the case before. And therefore, again, as Shelley said, prevention, 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 and if that's not possible, do something about it, because if you don't, you really have a problem. Now, the conclusion on prevalence is that we have, for many years, seen that more and more people get hard of hearing. And that is a trend that unfortunately gets even stronger. It gets stronger because we are more exposed to all kind of noise in the surrounding, which again Shelley addressed, and because people are getting older. The older you are, the bigger the risk is that you have a hearing loss. So it is incredibly many people that have a hearing loss, and that number is increasing all the time. In Europe as a whole, we have 34.4 million people with a disabling hearing loss. And a disabling hearing loss, that is where this report differs from the last one. Last one, we said it was 25 dB on the better ear, because that was by then the definition for a hearing loss that needed correction in order for people to live a normal life. Now the Global Burden of Disease system has simply put 35 dB as this is the limit for what they call a disabling hearing loss. So we have chosen to use that. So 34.4 million in the European Union and 47.9 million in Europe as a whole have a disabling hearing loss. As I showed you before, that's more in the European Union than the combined population of Austria, Finland, Ireland, and Lithuania. It's a tremendous amount of people. And as we saw also before, the cost of it is immense. We have looked into ownership and use of hearing aids also. In the old report, it was basically so that 2.5% of the European population used a hearing aid, and that rate has by then not increased for almost 40 years. But now, and then it was 25% of those that needed a hearing loss, needed a hearing aid or an implant that actually had one. I don't think anyone needs a hearing loss, do they? No. So anyone who needs help, only 25% had that. Fortunately, in the 10, 12 years in between, that has gone up to practically 1 in 3. So that is one of the really, really good new messages in our report. And we have also been looking into what actually makes people more prone to get assistance, to get help with their hearing loss. And there are 2 factors that weighs more than anything else. And that is either they themselves see we do have a problem we need help with, or their friends, family, spouses tell them you need to do something about it. That's really what is important and what carries them to do something about it. Then we have chapters looking into what are the benefits of hearing aids. And if I should cut that very, very close and nice, then if you are hard of hearing and use a hearing aid, you are happier, healthier, and wealthier. So that's nice, isn't it? And the overall quality of life goes up a lot if you do something about your hearing loss. Users of hearing aids report improvement in their overall quality of life, and they also report improvement in a lot of very specific situations. If we now look at a very difficult thing here, there is so that if you're Superman, and we have very few of those, then you have a health utility index of 1. If you're dead, you have a health utility index of 0, funnily enough. So the average healthy person has an average health utility index of 0.85. If you have a mild hearing loss, you then have 0.8. If you have a moderate, you have 0.7. And if you have a moderate severe, 0.6. So the more hard of hearing you are, the lower your quality of life is. And then the global burden of disease has been looking into how does that compare with other problems. And actually, they have concluded that a hearing loss, a disabling hearing loss, has a more negative effect than, for example, blindness or other vision impairment, but also more than Alzheimer and dementia, for example. This came as a surprise to a lot, and it is a very, very interesting field of research that we are following and also are doing a lot. In the report, Shield and Atherton go through a tremendous amount of different studies on these effects. But maybe the most important one that you can see here is the green line you see on the report here. The single most important risk factor of developing dementia is actually onset of hearing loss, and especially if it is rather early onset of hearing loss. There's a lot of theories why and so on, and there you have to go in and read the report or the other reports. But it is very, very clear, if you look at this, that the single most important factor is an unaddressed hearing loss for developing either form of dementia, which is so important to be aware of. And because of that, we also, like Shelley just said before, really encourage focus on early detection. The earlier you can detect a hearing loss, the better you can remedy it. It's not, I mean, you cannot grow the cells back, but with using a hearing aid, an implant, or many other ways, you can sort of start living a more normal life and then counter the negative effects of a hearing loss. So to have a early detection is as important as thing can be at all. Now, I said before that you are healthier, wealthier, and happier if you use a hearing aid, and we have a big part of the report looking into that. And the surveys show that over 80% of people that has addressed their hearing loss primarily by using a hearing aid are highly satisfied with it. And it is also a lot of important research that says you are better off in this and this and this and this if you use a hearing aid and do something about your hearing. So it is likelier that if you are doing this, you live a normal life. If you do not, you not only get less happy, you also get poorer. It is very clear that if you have addressed your hearing loss, your employment is better, your salary is better, and you stay longer on the workforce. People with a hearing loss have only 83% employment compared to the normal population. But that is if you use a hearing aid. If you don't, you are down to almost 50. So it is extremely important to stay on the workforce and to be active and happy in your life, that you address the problem and do something about it. We unfortunately, in terms of hearing loss on an economy, very, very often see that a hearing impaired person is at the bottom of the employment scale. They have not so well-paid job and typically has problems rising through the ranks. There is a lot of fatigue. A lot of you will know it. There is a lot of fatigue if you are, hard of hearing and work all day, and especially if you do not have a hearing aid or a cochlear implant, then you really get tired very early, around lunchtime normally. And all of that, of course, has a very, very negative effect on your life income and on your life as such. But if you use hearing aid implants or whatever, you are almost back to normal. So that again underlines the effect that Shelley was talking about. So as we said before, the effect for the European Union of a disabling hearing loss is 185 billion. And just to compare to the 170 billion we had in the 2006 report, if we had kept it down at the level it was then, both in the WHO, the European Union, the 25 dB, it would have been 400 million. That is not because we have made any funny trick. It is simply because all scientists that deal with this have found out that hearing loss is much worse in sort of the daily life, in social life, in private life, and in economy than they thought before. So we are putting hearing loss up among the 5 most important negative health factors in the world and in Europe. So it is really, really something to do something about. The way we have calculated it has 2 main bodies in what the cost is, and that is lost productivity in society, and then it is lower quality of life. Lost productivity we can calculate, and it has been calculated in detail in the study. It will be much too long if I go into it now. And the same goes for lost quality of life. There is a monetary consequence of these, and that monetary consequence goes for disabling hearing loss altogether on 185 billion euro a year for Europe, and that is a lot. And then, of course, there is an additional cost. Just a new study has come out from Johns Hopkins School of Public Health in the US, showed that the other health cost, I mean, going to the doctor, getting hospitalized, having other illnesses and so on and so forth, adds another 46% to the cost that a normal person has on all kind of other health expenses. That is increased by 46% if you have an untreated hearing loss. Or rather from the report, we are able to go in and look at what does this mean. I mean, I have now used the 185 billion for Europe as a whole several times, but it is also possible to see, and now unfortunately I cannot read my own figures there, but I hope you can. You will see the figures for example, Germany is 5.8 billion people that has a disabling hearing loss, and 3.8 of those do not help themselves doing it. And that reflects into a figure of 39 billion euro for Germany. And I think, if I recall correctly, it's around 10,000 euro per person that it has a negative effect on. If anyone wonder why is the personal effect in each individual country different, then the answer is it's because the gross national product per person in those countries are different. That is what I told you to begin with, the big difference between this study and our previous ones, that we, along with the WHO, have now gone in and taken the WHO and International Monetary Fund figures for individual countries' gross national product. And that means that a country like Poland, which a lot lower gross national product per person, has, of course, reflected in here having a much less effect. But if you see it in percentage of, for example, Poland and Germany, it will be more or less the same. It is only the figures that derive so much. We have tried to collect the whole thing into 6 main messages, as you can see behind me here. And these are the conclusions that we have overall on the report. But the report itself is 250 pages with a tremendous amount of statistics, graphs, and everything you want to know. So you can go into our website, www.hearit.org, and download it together with a lot of other interesting stuff. And you're very welcome to do that and try to help us spread the message, because it is extremely beneficial for all the countries to do something about it. It is even more beneficial for each individual hard of hearing and their families and friends to go in and recognize the problem and do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for this presentation. I'm quite sure that many of us will check on the website these your reports, which could be a very important toolkit in the direction to act and react on the right way. So now I'd like to welcome well-known Mark to his presentation. So he will tell us more how we can make sure that hearing protection is effective and certainly safe. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. In fact, when we are looking at prevention, the first thing you think about, why don't we protect our ears better? And then if you go and look how people actually use hearing protection, it's very, very disappointing. There's a study that was launched in 2014-15, and it looked at multiple cities in the world. I'm quite happy that, in fact, some Belgian cities are on top. It's maybe not a surprise that Brussels is somewhat in the middle. It's a little less eager to protect their ears. And maybe not surprising as well that Italy is completely at the bottom, which for me is annoying because I also work in Italy, so I'm not doing a very good job to promote safe listening in that country. Now, if you look at this, I think the gap we need to close is about at least 80% more people should use their hearing protection. This was situations where young people knew that the loudness level was harmful for their ears and could, in fact, impact and result in hearing loss. So they knew that. And they didn't wear hearing protection. Then you wonder why. And then there's multiple arguments that people are using. One of the arguments is, I will not understand anybody. I will protect my ears, but I won't understand anybody. The second is, they are uncomfortable, so they don't fit into my ears, so that's why I took them out and I don't wear them anymore. The third one is, they result in poor sound quality. I paid so much for this ticket, and now I will not enjoy the music, so I will not use my hearing protection. I didn't bring them. I forgot them. Yeah. And then, I don't really see the need of it. That's what people actually say and state, and in multiple studies. I paid too much for this ticket, so I'm not going to enjoy the music. And then, the question is, does it really help? Because who says that they are so efficient? And now you are tempted, if you see these arguments, to go and counter-react. And that's not a good approach. First of all, maybe some of these arguments make sense. And maybe we should find solutions to avoid some of the negative consequences and feelings and emotions around using hearing protection. So that's why we wanted to set up the study I will present right now. So here are the questions. There's just some visions and images, so we don't have to go into this. And then we started with the study. Now, I'm saying we started with the study, as always the case. I teach at the Antwerp Thomas More Audiology Department. The people that really did the work are sitting at the end of this room. All four of them are the audiology students that did this as part of their research project, and I must say they have been kicking really hard and working very hard to get all the data ready because they knew we wanted to present it today to all of you. So we had a subject, 41 young normal hearing subjects, and we were quite strict about the hearing loss, so it should at least at any frequency it should be better than 20. That was the whole point. We had 20 male and 21 female. We need to take care of that because audiology is a very female education in Belgium, and if you only picked our students from our department, we wouldn't have any males, so I think we had to look for those. And they all signed, of course, an informed consent. We respect GDPR and everything that has to be in. And the students who did the job are sitting here. Now, before they entered, we had to have, of course, the audiogram, otherwise we didn't know if they fitted in the criteria. And then what we did is that we analyzed different types of hearing protection. The first one is the typical disposable foam hearing protection, the ones you typically get free of charge when you go to any concert in Belgium. They always have to be provided. That's what you normally always get. Then the other one is instant reusable hearing protection, and we had in fact 5 different systems out there. We had, most of them had some kind of filter inside to improve the sound quality, and one of them was fully closed. And then we had as the golden reference custom-made hearing protection with a music filter. Right, that was in fact taken as a reference to see what is the best possible option, yes or no. So what we then did is that we looked into subjective performance, which means that all the subjects had to listen to sound files, do something active, really compare each and every type of hearing protection. We used a visual analog scale from 0 to 10, and we looked at sense of protection. Do I have a feeling I'm really protected while they were listening to very loud pink noise? Otherwise, it doesn't mean too much. The second one, listened to music quality. So they were listening to music. It was Pink, by the way, singing. It was quite good. I even enjoyed the music myself. Then the third one was understanding speech and noise while actually listening to a constant speech in a noisy environment. The fourth one was comfort, the feeling in the ear, and we had many more, but I should only take 15 minutes, so I shouldn't overdo it in what we explain. Right. The other thing we tested is people's audiogram, and we compared the aided versus the unaided, or the protected versus the unprotected result. And that's what we did on different octave frequencies with each and every hearing protection in, and of course also without, so with open ear. The other one was understanding speech and noise. So we did speech audiometry, an adaptive procedure, at a fairly high noise level. So we took as a noise level 75 dB SPL, which is normal, higher than normal. But yeah, hearing protection is something you will use in a noisy environment, so it doesn't help you too much to test it in a quiet environment. So we did it adaptive, and we compared aided versus, protected versus unprotected with all the different systems. What are the first conclusions? So the green bar on the left is in fact what is the reference. That's the custom-made hearing protection with music filters. The blue bar completely at the right is open ear. Now the higher the better, because we inversed it to make it easier to understand. And what we see is kind of interesting. Everybody understands at least just as well with their ears protected compared to unprotected. So the argument, I will not understand with my hearing protection in a noisy environment as it is not correct. You understand as well and even better with some hearing protection in than you do with the open unprotected ears. Now, you don't see a huge difference between systems, and you also see that in fact the disposable, the yellow one, is doing quite okay in this one. But then we did something interesting. We also checked how is the perception. And you see perception is quite different. Then they perceive that the disposable hearing protection is giving them much poorer understanding of noise. It's a conflict between both, and I think it's perception as it is, so we should take that serious as well. But we see that in fact, and you'll see it in other slides, there may be some explanation why that is the case. And there we see again that the custom-made is winning, which is not a huge surprise. I think that was expected. Then we looked at subjective comfort, and you know that's one of the main reasons why people don't keep their hearing protection in. And then you see a huge difference. You see right away that disposable hearing protection is doing a very poor job. All the reusable instant fit is doing significantly better than the disposable. And then again, custom-made is doing better than that one. So what we may discuss at some point is it so smart that we only provide disposable hearing protection at concerts? Because if they are so uncomfortable, we are maybe not training people how to keep protecting their ears. And this is not all. Because when we looked at attenuation, we have seen that all hearing protectors are attenuating. That's a relief. I think they should. That's the whole point. But some are protecting more than others. And then you see that disposable is protecting very well. Although later, if you look at the spread of the standard deviation, it's very unreliable, but maybe a little too much. Definitely when you look at high frequencies, and that could be one of the reasons why it's kind of annoying. The other thing to know as well that disposable hearing protection is not that easy to put into your ears. A lot of people don't know how to handle that. I saw many students during the test putting it in, and then you see the disposable kind of slowly going out of the ear canal again, which is of course not protecting you very well. So you need to be careful, and you typically get signs how to do it and how not to do it. If you look at the orange bar to the right, you see a huge spread of that disposable hearing protection on how well it protects in different ears. So it's showing you right away it's not quite stable, while if you look at the green differentiation, you see much stabler results and much more the same results on different people. Now, I'm sorry, this is a small graph, although I think here it should be better. The green line is custom-made protection with music filter. The yellow line is the disposable hearing protection. And you see at the low frequencies, they are identical. Only at the high frequencies, you see that, in fact, the custom-made music filters, they have a flat response of 20 dB attenuation, which is intended because you do that to preserve clarity of speech. You do that to preserve quality of sound. That's the whole idea. So that's what you see here. And we also see that if you took the instant fit hearing protection reusable, that the ones with a decent music filter also perform quite comparable to the custom-made version. And then, it's probably not a big surprise, but you see right away that the two ones who did the best job in having a flat response at high frequencies are also the ones that are rated very high in music sound quality. So you see right away that, in fact, they tell the same story. So here again, if you go to a concert and you provide free of charge protection, which is uncomfortable and which is destroying the music sound quality, are we doing such a smart job? Wouldn't it be better to promote something else, or at least tell people they can do better? Because it doesn't help you to put something in your ears and take it out 5 minutes later, because the whole point of prevention is gone. We want people to change their attitudes, right, and keep using hearing protection all the time. Now, how is Europe helping us? I think Europe is helping us quite well. There's the new PPE regulation. It stands for Personal Protective Equipment. It is in force, in fact, and it's mandatory in force from end of April this year, so it's really speeding up. It demands that all personal protection is verified and has a quality standard. It also demands that specifically for custom-made hearing protection, you do a verification and validation while they are wearing it. And that needs to be done for each and every person using it. It's not enough to have it in your pocket. It needs to work in your ears, and you need to be sure. So, conclusion, I will put the assumptions and the myths and then the answers. So, I will not understand anybody. That is probably not true. Right? If you look at any kind of hearing protection, they all provide at least as good intelligibility and noise than the open ear. So that is not an argument. They are uncomfortable and they don't fit. Well, here they have a point. We have to admit that disposable is not really doing the job. Custom-made is most comfortable, but if you don't have that, the instant fit reusable is significantly more comfortable than the disposable system. So there we may change the attitude because they have a point and we want them to change. They result in poor sound quality? Honestly, yes, they can. Disposable can lead to this, and I think then we know that music filters is a solution for that, so we could handle that carefully. I didn't bring them. Well, on the one hand, you see in many festivals you get them free of charge, but maybe even better, buy your own set. They're not that expensive, and your ears are much more valuable than the cost of a set of hearing protection that really works very well. I don't see the need. Well, there I think we have a very good partner in WHO with the whole Make Listening Safe actions and campaigns. Awareness is key and important. And you see it at multiple levels. I know that European Commission is very active in promoting safe listening and going on to do more. But I think we have to promote it, and I hope all of you are really promoters for safe listening from now on. At least I'm sure you did it before. Then, I have paid too much for this concert and that ticket. Well, you know that probably, but you also want to enjoy that concert in 2 years from now and in 5 years from now. So investing in protecting your ears is not a bad idea. It's not about bad music quality. It's about good, safe listening to wonderful music and doing this in the coming years as well. And do they really help? Well, we know they are helping, and there's many more standards in place, and we hope that the PPE standard and the requirements are helping in this fight. Now, allow me to do a little promotion for the Belgian Audiology Society, because we have a conference on this on the 4th of May, so you're all very welcome to join that conference. And there, typically, we will focus on all the aspects of safe listening. So we will look at the WHO ITU standard. An expert from ITU will come and present the details of that standard. We look at the specifications for hearing protectors, all the standards in place, European Commission work groups working on those PPE requirements will be there. We will look at environmental safe listening regulations in Belgium. So we have, in fact, somebody sitting here who is in fact will be part of the team doing it, looking at what do we have in place, what is working, and maybe also what are the results in effectiveness of all those systems. Leisure noise exposure and then behavior is important. Influence of musician earplugs. Also reduction of sound experience exposure by physical measures. It's an interesting talk, that one, because they looked at musicians. And typically, most musicians are harmed by their own instrument. So that seems to be one of the issues. And then, of course, we talk about hearing protection as well. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mark. And now I proceed the floor to Madame Daria Pike from European Federation of Heart and Hearing People. So, welcome.
Thank you. As you can see, the title of my presentation is The Social Aspects of Early Identification. And I would like to present how hearing loss and acceptance takes place. But before I start, I would like to go over the outline. I will shortly introduce first EFHOC and myself. The introductory slide will touch upon questions such as what do we mean by social aspects? What does early identification refer to when it comes to understanding of hearing loss? And what impact of hearing loss and social stigma have on an individual? At the end, the course conclusion. For those who do not know us, EFHOC has represented millions of hard of hearing people throughout Europe for more than 25 years. EFHOC mission is awareness and equal rights for hard of hearing people on the European level. EFHOC members are national organization of and hard of hearing people, including people with tinnitus, cochlear implants, hyperacusis, Meniere's disease, and deafened people. Both members of EFHOC are volunteers and have a certain degree of hearing loss, or they have a family member with a hearing loss. Today, my colleagues gave me the opportunity to speak here. As I said earlier, I am from Slovenia. I am an occupational therapist by profession, as well as a freelance counselor in the field of social care services. I work as one of the leaders in the largest center for people with mental and physical disorders in Slovenia. And also, I'm one of the board members of EFHOC, and of course, a member of the National Slovenian Organization for Deaf and Hard of Hearing People. I was thinking a lot if I can actually tell you something new today. New statistic that will convince you of early intervention and to understand why we are warning about the risk of rising hearing loss due to various effects. Many studies have been written, numerous articles have been published. The effects of loss of the psychological, motor, and ultimately the economic situation of both the individual and society have been proven. Yet, we are still face the indifference. So, can I say anything new? No. Perhaps I can only awaken new thoughts or feelings in you. So, yes, I'm positive, and I believe that you will be able to understand these feelings. But let's go back. How do we define social aspects? It is the relationship that is developed by individuals through interaction with other people in society. And what in the interaction is, what it What is early identification? We all know the symptoms, we are aware of them, but we ignore them because we don't want something bad to happen to us. But does it really help us to bury our head in the sand to escape the problem? The decision to visit the doctor after the first signs of hearing loss takes most people from 3 to 5 years or more. So where is the problem with this? We know it is better to detect the problem as soon as possible, and the results are better. But why are we still thinking do not have programs for early identification of hearing loss? Because we know that hearing loss can occur at any age. Also, we know the risk factors. What is our first reaction? This is my audiogram when I was 25, and I'm an occupational therapist. I worked with disabled people, but I was not able to recognize my hearing loss. The reason for hearing loss is unknown. So it can happen to anybody. It can also happen to you. And just an easy question, are we able to do that, what is on the screen, to tell everyone that we have a hearing loss? I will especially mention adults and elderly people. We need to know that hearing loss is not only that you are not able to hear, but that more problems can occur, especially in the beginning. And also, it is important to ask yourself who you are, what do you want from your life, and so on. What are you prepared to do? Ask yourself. It is necessary to understand the classification of hearing loss through two different models: audiological classification, which classifies an individual based on an individual's degree of hearing loss. While this classification system provides an objective account of the severity of a person's hearing loss, it does not provide information about the day-to-day functioning of the persons. But can you imagine what 1 millimeter means in the audiogram of individuals of society? What kind of troubles that will come with this? Only millimeters, and my life completely changed. Another system based on a functional classification. In this classification system, people have hearing loss fall into 3 main subgroups. Those who are hard of hearing, those who are deaf and became deaf in adulthood, and those who are born deaf or become deaf early in life. Although these 3 groups are share impaired or absent hearing, they are very different in many ways and have a variety of different characteristics, needs, desires, and ways of communicating. And because of this, we need different support systems. What kind of connection does the quality of life have with early identification of hearing loss? It is very simple. If you hear, you have a better starting point in life. For children in practically all European countries, pre-screening tests are done immediately when they are born. Also, tests are usually done at the school age. But when people lose their hearing later in life, are they able to recognize what's happening? And when they recognize the problem, do they act? And if they do, they are able to take it seriously. In our primary health system, able to take the problem seriously? Is their environment able to accept and understand the problem? We need to think of all those who may not understand the risk of hearing loss. And also, it needs to be understood that hearing loss is usually not only the one problem. For many accompanying problems occur: tinnitus, dizziness, oppressive balance. It is logical that all problems that arise affect the quality of life of not only the individual, but society too. There are several studies and surveys that link hearing loss with decreased social and psychological consequences. There are also studies that demonstrate the increased risk of untreated hearing loss over the treated hearing loss. Untreated hearing loss has serious emotional and social consequences for older persons, including depression, according to a large-scale study of the National Council on Aging. What many people with hearing loss don't realize is that the signs of untreated hearing loss are more noticeable to others than hearing aids. And what can we see from this photo? People attending the ceremony, chatting and attending what is happening on stage. If you don't know that is you and you about your hearing loss, then people might think you are being social, being unsocial because you look to your computer and maybe doing something completely different. Oops. Physical consequences deserve a separate slide because we often forget about it. We have hearing loss, so what? But do you know that if you focus on listening all the day through induction labs and reading STT, and then you are very tired at the end? More than people without hearing loss. And I would like to mention so-called peer support, volunteering and helping others. That is very nice and positive, but who knows that we are, in fact, working in two jobs. And by the way, we know all about the effects of hearing loss on individuals. Oops. It's okay. No. You're doing?
Yeah.
I don't hear nothing.
Tails, heads on sides apart.
He's starting again, so it's good.
We need to. What does this mean in real life, and how do people with hearing loss greet each day? Frequently mentioned is depression, or how depression affects family relationships. If I decide on a close family, that is partnership, children, and of course a job. Depression after a certain amount of time leads to the feeling of relationships and withdrawal from society because it cannot provide constant support, and of course there may also be problems on the job. The person is usually aware of this, but at that time there is a need to provide much more help in all areas of life. Parental depression can also affect children, and consequently the children will also need help. Also, depression will influence work responsibility and so on. The cost society a lot of money, but we talked about that 2 years ago and a few minutes ago. It is also necessary to talk about the patient repeating, waiting for us to change the programming in hearing aids, cochlear implants, before we can listen. Just because we are using assistive listening devices or systems on TV or other programs, we cannot hear them right away, and we need time to adjust to different situations. We lose the ability to spontaneously respond or interact. This affects how we and others accept the situation. I did not speak much today about surveys. As you know, many of them. I would like to give you a small view of living with hearing loss and deafness, but I would like to inform you that many people with hearing loss have traumatic experience in their lives because of their hearing loss. 60% of responders confirmed feeling anxiety and depression following the event of a progressive or sudden hearing loss. And we can also ask ourselves how many of our partners and children feel they have been rejected by us because we were not able to respond to them right away, and how they has affected them in life, anxiety, depression, and other. The term quality of life is used to evaluate the general well-being of individuals. Considerable agreement existing regarding the idea that the evaluation of quality of life is multidimensional: physical, material, social, and emotional well-being. It has been it has now been reported by several authors that hearing loss is an increasingly important public health problem that has been linked to reduced quality of life, as it can impair the exchange of information, significantly impact of daily life, especially for elderly people. If I translate that to a hard of hearing situation, if you have good hearing devices, you are happy and you are successful in your job, and after you are able to earn enough, yes, for buying good hearing aids, but you must have the hearing aids that works the best for you, and you must be able to have access to them, and all hearing devices need to be compatible. This photo was taken in October last year in Vienna. We talk about artificial intelligence, and this was support, not compatible with my hearing device, but very old too. And it is also necessary to understand and take into account that compatibility of devices between one another and the ease of use. And of course, also quality of life is close connection with hearing loss. But again, we know about that. So, early intervention. For now, we cannot stop aging, but we are able to reduce noise, reduce medications, illnesses, and other risk factors. It is not a solution to have better hearing aids and implants, only better hearing aids and implants. The solution is prevent hearing loss. And maybe it is also necessary to mention, because we are today in the parliament, that it's really necessary to have good laws to help us in fighting against the negative social impact. And what about the stigma? It is very popular to speak about stigma, but do we really understand what is like to live with stigma? We can speak about social stigma, which refers to various forms of bias, bigotry, and discriminatory behavior towards individuals with disabilities. And another one is your own personal stigma, which is in fact personalization of stigma by a person who suffers from hearing loss. It is simple to resolve the problem by making the environment accessible and people more understanding. It is necessary to understand that hard of hearing, in other words, is not some lesser manifestation of being deaf, but it is a disability entirely on its own. And it is maybe time that people with hearing loss and deafness must be looked upon as a part of the broadening diversity in society, and recognize how this will impact societies around Europe, since the number of people with hearing loss is growing. And for conclusion, we are hard of hearing people, and we know that in the next few years there is going to be even more of people with hearing loss. Collaboration among the listed organizations is critical in order to improve lives of hard of hearing people. We need universal design of hearing equipment, public awareness, elimination of barriers, and accessible society. So, I'm at the end now. I'm glad I can share my thoughts with you and represent EFCOG today. As you can see, there is much information, and all this information can be in your hand in 1 minute, or maybe quicker. In 1 minute, you can find millions of articles, instructions, and surveys about hearing loss. But I have a question. We know all this. Why are we still talking so much about this, and why do we have so many problems informing people that hearing loss is a complex situation which affects individuals and society? And it is very simple to understand that early intervention is necessary for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara, for this excellent presentation. So, quality of life is one of the important motto. So, let's do it together. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mladen Peršić, our last speaker today, and he will testimony on how they were very successful in organizing a hearing awareness campaign last year. Mladen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Switch it on. Can somebody else switch?
Hvala. It's nice seeing you today. I'm very happy to see you, and especially Igor Šoltes. We have been working together for so long, and I'm really happy to see you today. Thanks. Today I will be using sign language, and Špela will be speaking for me. The Deaf and Hard of Hearing Clubs Association of Slovenia is national representative organization for 4 categories of hearing impaired persons: the deaf, hard of hearing, persons with cochlear implants, and deaf-blind persons. Our association includes 13 different local clubs. It means we are covering requirements of this group on the entire territory of Slovenia. Population of Slovenia is about 2 million, of which 1,000 are deaf persons who use Slovene Sign Language. Around 75,000 have a hearing aid, 450 persons with cochlear implants, and bone and short hearing. And also 100 deaf-blind persons. Our Deaf and Hard of Hearing Clubs Association, at the meeting of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People in 2016, we were selected to host 2018 international meeting and conference, which happens every 2 years. Also in 2016, the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People accepted the Slovenian candidature to organize 2018 meeting. We had to prepare for these events, so we organized International Week of the Deaf event, which took place in Ljubljana from 7th to 12th March of 2018. At the start of the event, we had different forms of raising the public awareness of hearing loss, and we had a lot of help and really active participation of all the sponsors. On Thursday, May in 2018, our clubs association and also International Federation of Hard of Hearing People organized an international workshop with title Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, its practical implementation and guidelines for future. The international workshop was attended by 30 participants from different countries on the world. On Friday, 11th May, international conference with the title Accessibility Removes All Barriers took place. The conference was attended by persons with hearing loss from all over Slovenia and abroad, and also by representatives and members of international organization, International Federation of Hard of Hearing People, and European Federation of Hard of Hearing People. The conference saw active participation of 6 speakers and 11 lecturers from Slovenia and abroad giving their presentation. 5 providers of hearing aids and cochlear implants presented their range of products and services. I'm really happy that I also met Igor Šoltes and Mark. Igor is our member of the European Parliament. I'm really happy to see you today, and I just want to say thank you. Let me present some of the key points from the International Week of the Deaf event in Slovenia. First point, preserving the abilities of the elderly and preparing for aging due to hearing loss. Second point, technological development in the field of surgical techniques and use of robotics. The need for a new standard for hearing aids. psychological support and motivation of users in wearing hearing aids, support of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People and the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People about human rights of persons with hearing loss, improvement of healthcare, also promotion of awareness and advocating the availability of technology for hard of hearing persons. On Saturday, 12 May 2018, the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People and European Federations meetings were held. In addition to this international event, we organized accompanying events such as a press conference, different media announcements and interviews in different media, and also information stand with program in the center of the city Ljubljana with all the materials and our presentations. Also, 3 presentation video clips were also prepared, which were published on our Slovenian national television, also on our website, and were being displayed on 380 digital displays in 153 public buses from 27th April to 12th May 2018 for a duration of 30 seconds with 312,684 reruns over the set time period. We estimate that the event was really successful and the fruits of our work are still being reaped today and will continue to do so in the future through our work, effort and mission, which we have undertaken for all categories of persons with hearing aids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vercic, for your presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have 90 minutes, summa summarum, up to the end of this conference. So now I open the floor to audience for your comments, for your observation, and potentially remarks. So please. Don't be too shy. Okay, the gentleman. Yeah, just press, please.
Is it working now? My name is Dominic Blake. I'm an expert in acoustics, and I'm also teacher at the Mariaps Institute, giving some lessons to people which they will be audiologists in the future. And I'm also actually chairman of the Belgian Acoustician Association. So I'm doing a lot of noise measurement. I protect myself. And yesterday night I tried the software, and I get a result of 87. So I'm very satisfied about the result. I would mention that I would first of all, congratulate the board there, especially for the new regulation. They will be applied for the Android, iPhones systems, and also a new regulation for the hearing protection system, because if you are looking to the data concerning noise attenuation, there are a lot of things, they are incredible. I would also say that a part of the problem due to the hearing No, it's okay. I should mention that a part of the problem in relationship with hearing loss, because we performed a study with a student at the Mariaps Institute, if you are looking to the quality of the music, which is given and played by those kind of system, unfortunately, most of the recording are dramatically compressed. And if you are looking to the statistical histogram of the sound level given, measured, for example, using a Brühl artificial ear if you compare the statistical histogram of the music reproduced by an Android, and if you compare the same musical highlights given, you can listen in a concert hall, you have a compression of the music. And then if you analyze on an acoustical point of view the noise, because music is a fun noise, you can remark that your LAQ level, which is energetical average of the sound pressure level, this LAQ is systematically higher than if you listen the same music in a concert hall. That's the first point. Compression of music, you have, of course, as you know, everybody, a file compression and you have a level compression. And if your level compression is too high, your LAQ level expressed in dBA, you will be also higher. That's the first remark. So please, it is also important to limit noise emission at the source. As, for example, you have to reduce equivalent sound pressure level inside the hall of an industry. The second point, also to confirm what you said, one of my students performed a study 2 or 3 years ago, and we did sampling on 100 students between 18 and 25 years old, and we have just asked to the student to give us their Android or iPhone, and then we have make a sound analysis of the LAQ level. And we also, using a questionnaire, we have asked how many times, how many hours a day you are listening to the music. And finally, we had the conclusion that 1 young people on 3 was concerned by hearing loss. So it's time to react.
Do you want to say something?
Thank you very much for highlighting that issue, and I think that this goes very well with the philosophy that we have been developing since 2015. In 2015, WHO launched its initiative to make listening safe in consideration of these various factors which you have very succinctly summarized here, which is that people are exposed to high levels of sound. Some of them are, of course, concerned about it. We understand that. And one of the driving philosophies of this initiative is that we need to give people those tools, those options, in order to practice safe listening. In developing these tools, we have also, we are aware that the compression is actually putting people more at risk rather than protecting them. And that's why if you will look at the current proposal, the standard which is proposed, we have moved away from capping all music at 100 dB cap, for example, and giving them their sound, informing people about their sound dose, rather than cutting off all the music and compressing it in that short time frame, which could be rather more dangerous than listening to music which is not compressed.
And then I hope you will come to our day on the 4th of May in Leuven, because there is a new initiative. I think it's already working. It's called Mastered for iTunes. And it's a kind of a quality label that tells you don't have overcompression. Maybe we should go more for positive messages, promising that if people have correctly recorded music with good dynamics, that should be applauded and welcomed, instead of trying to put a ban on something. But I really appreciate the fact that you are mentioning that, and that's one of the reasons why there's a complete shift from not limiting the maximum loudness, but really looking at the overall exposure to avoid exactly that. But very good point. Thank you so much.
And also you mentioned, if I understand correctly, this European Accessibility Act. I mean, we, since 2015, we try to adopt the Accessibility Act, which will make life much easier for the people with disabilities. And next week we have plenary in Strasbourg, and by the schedule and agenda we will vote about this act on 13th of March. So after this, the European country will have 3 years for implementation of this act, which is really, how to say, inclusive act for the more than 80 million Europeans with disabilities. And this is also very important to address this question, as you mentioned, and we have to put some relevant question also to authorities how to react on preventive way, not only to heal consequences, but also to find the reason why some things happened. And we have tools in our hands, because, as you know, this noise everywhere is sometimes, you know, you could not avoid, but you could reduce in the proper way. So please, for a reaction, if you have any. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Patrick Dazer from Adel, a European hearing implant manufacturer. I had a question to the panel. So over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of initiatives, whether it's linked to, for example, the hearing resolution of WHO in 2017. I've seen an increasing impact also of the awareness, let's say, linked to the World Hearing Day over the last couple of years. And we have seen these great events here at the European Parliament, also like today, linking hearing loss to different comorbidities like cognitive decline and diabetes type 2 and so on. Now, my question is really on a political level. It's like, apart from the European Disability Act, I mean, what can be done concretely before and after the upcoming elections towards raising awareness for hearing loss, you know, on the European agenda, but also making sure that it doesn't just stay with raising awareness, but also that there's a concrete impact in the field of that. So I don't know if somebody wants to comment on that. Thank you.
It's a political question, maybe you address this to me. Well, I'm afraid before the forthcoming election in May, we really don't have enough time to do serious job about the implementation of this act. But anyway, I think also in the next term will be extremely important to follow implementation of this act, including with all relevant action, not only with some manifestos, but also with a concrete preventive action. And after this excellent presentation, I think it's really, really extremely important to include this question also in education program, in primary schools, to educate young people that they have to take care about this hearing. They have to take care about noise, volumes, because, you know, this music industry and also the movie industry really target with this volume, with this noise to people. And mostly, especially young people, are really affected with this. Also in clubs, in the, you know, in the events, etc. Also in the sports events, which is almost impossible to discuss with a neighbor because of noise. Therefore, it's really important to make important move in the way to prepare some kind of also the guidelines, how to use, how to deal with this Accessibility Act. Because otherwise, you know, that will be the serious problem, how to implement on the relevant way. And as you all know, the European directives are the legislative package where have to be transferred to domestic legislation, but not literary, not article to article, but to be implemented on the aim of goals, aim of principles which are following the each directive. And that could be also opportunity together with your organization to help member states, to help also European Parliament to prepare this, also the European Disability Organization to prepare these guidelines with this relevant information. Thank you.
I would like to give a comment that we need to understand what hearing loss is, in fact, and what that means for our life, and for people who lost their hear what they mean for their life. As long as people are not able to understand what is hearing loss, in fact, they will not protect their hear, because they don't understand. I have 3 children, and they all listen music too loud many times, and I'm deaf cochlear implant user, and I'd explain them everything. Not one time, many times. Okay, now they're older, they understand what that means, in fact. And it is not nice to wear all the time something's on your ears or maybe on your head. And when you look around, you can see a lot of people with headphones all the time. Not 1 hour, but through the whole day. So we need to work on that, how to understand hearing loss, if young people understand hearing loss.
Thank you. Very short intervention, and then also very short comment. Sorry, but the time is not an hour time. Yes, please.
Well, directly to the question, and that's something everyone can do here. There are 35 million people with a disabling hearing loss. They live in families of an average of 3. That means that around 1 in 4 voters to the next parliament live in a family with a person with a disabling hearing loss. I can assure you that if you all go out, IFO, the rest of you, and explain politicians that roughly 1 in 4, between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 of their voters live in a hard of hearing family, and the EU could save up to 185 billion doing something seriously about it, that would make an impact. We have tried that in a couple of countries in specific political circumstances, and it works. So go out and tell the numbers, and that will work.
Thank you. I will tell them. So please, very, very short. You have only 2 minutes.
Thanks a lot for some brilliant presentations. I'm Tina Lyngholm from the Danish Hard of Hearing Association. Just a quick question to you, Shelley. With the new standards, who takes this further? I mean, this means to be discussed, I guess, with some of the big players on the market. Are they willing to actually put in the automatic volume reduction things in the phones? I mean, what kind of discussions are taking place? Because I guess this is not something that just changes. Is it something that WHO are taking a dialogue with the big producers about, or what is going on?
So thank you for that question. Very, very relevant, of course. So the standard gets implemented in 2 ways. So countries, or for example the European Commission, could mandate that all devices to be sold in Europe or in your particular countries must comply with this global standard, which means that all manufacturers who wish to market their products in that particular country or region would have to comply with it. The second way it gets implemented is by voluntary implementation by the manufacturers themselves, who, seeing that it makes certain good sense, business sense, as well as, just generally good sense, implement them voluntarily. So we are following both the modalities, also discussing with governments. At the same time, we are also discussing with manufacturers who have also been involved in the discussions leading up to the development of these recommendations. So the recommendations have not been made by us just on our own, but also in consultation with a large group of stakeholders, which include experts, but also include industry partners. So.
Okay, thank you. So I have to conclude this very successful and very informative event. So as I promised at the beginning, just information about the result screening, about the morning test. So total 40 hearing tests done, 29 normal hearing and 11 hearing loss in 1 or 2 years, mostly high frequency loss. So, and also please promote the HEAR WHO apps. This could be really helpful for all, especially for the next generation, especially after these results that the HEAR loss is on increase. So thank you everyone for coming, and just a few words to the end to Mark.
Thank you very much. I must say this was the smoothest organization ever of a lunch debate, thanks to a very efficient team from Dr. Soltis. And I would like to thank specifically Lina and Katarina for doing a wonderful job in preparing this, so please give them a big hand of applause.
Turn off that one. There's a wrong one. This one is wrong.
Oh, yeah.
No. Turn that one off. Turn the other on.
Since I live in the heart of hearing events, when I visit events, I see always that after 20 minutes, the real-time writers change after 20 minutes, and nobody wants to work like this man. And he works two hours, and the speakers were very, very fast, especially Mr. Loris. He was not, so that people hard of hearing people could not understand. He's too far too fast. Sorry, but I wanted to say that the man who did the writing, one should tell this. This is very important, I think.
Thank you.